Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Repo Men from 2010. So, this movie, of course, is to be, for me, like a movie that I've been wanting. It's another one of those, like, I've been wanting to just kind of cover this movie for a really long time. Because I find this movie to just be really fun. I like the concept of it simply because we have kind of Jude Law telling us is like, well, uh, there are certain things where a bank is to take if you do not make payments. If you are, of course, to no longer make payments on your house, the bank takes the house. If you can't go on and do any number of things, the bank will take things. And so when all of a sudden you're behind on your payments for a uh, Oregon, then all of a sudden Jude Law is to come as Remy to go and collect. Because we end up having, of course, these guys getting commissioned for retaking back some organ that, of course, you are to not be paying for, which makes for a really interesting surprise of a film, and of course, to be really a fun approach of this where eventually some characters are to at some point either cry or some people are to have a laugh or whatever just because they are to go on to realize how effed they are. So going on in this movie, there's a lot to just kind of unpack in this film, and so hopefully I'm going to be able to get every single bit of it in the way of which that it gets done. But more than likely, I might just go on and just go and just recant everything that I was to see at some point in this film, and then eventually get to the point of me trying to call this one what it is, because I love this film because it's really fun. It's a fun film. Definitely, I would say that this movie is a great movie, and because really, how rare is it that you see this kind of concept that has been used? Really, we have it where, like, I wish that this would have gone on to be a series, or I wish that it could have gone on to be another thing, approach, and whatever. And we really could have had a lot of fun with it. Uh, but it just kind of went nowhere after this movie. Going in, uh, going in here, I would say that this is a great film, but a lot of people have vastly different opinions. Some people hate this movie. Some people are like, oh yeah, I completely agree with you, and I want to go and check this out. Where the heck can I go ahead and do so? Well, it seems like there's probably a laundry list of number of apps that dare in fact you would have to rent this movie for a number of dollarinos. You could also go out of your way to Google search two certain apps here. You can go on to Google search a app called Letter C Movies, so a letter and then a word. You can go and search Letter C Movies, so C Movies, and Google search that, and you should be able to come up with an app where you can be able to pretty much see anything. There is no fee. It's just there's ads in between certain parts of a movie, but you'll be able to see pretty much anything. There's also to be an app that I could recommend for people to see, which is to be an app that I would Google search and say Fox HD Movies. The logo will say Fox HD Movies. The title will say Play 1080p HD whatever movies, and you should be able to download that app. And with the combination of both those apps, you can pretty much see almost anything. There is a rare amount of times where if you exhaust the certain engine, like you may be able to have the weirdest movie that is to not pop up on either one of those apps. Then I would kind of have a third option, which is on a Google Play Store called TV Crush, and that could have like some random stuff that these apps don't, and for whatever reason. So with that said, Let's go into uh, so really the concept of this movie, the teeing up version of this movie is simple. We have Remy, who of course is to go on and consistently working with Jake, who is Forrest Whitaker's character, and it seems that business is going so well up until a point where we start to have Remy, who is one way or another, either metaphorically or literally, having a change of heart. And then all of a sudden we have Remy, who's really starting to realize here that maybe he should go off and be doing something else with his life. And every single thing that he has to go on and do is to start to tick away uh, within a 90-day period of time. So, with that said, yeah, great film. I thoroughly enjoy this. Some people may have this in their collection because maybe they liked it that much. Uh, so that would be also another easy way for you to say you can see this again if you already have seen it. Because maybe it's a dusting off of putting it in your collection. Because, yeah, like I think this movie feels worth that. This is kind of one of my favorite Jude Law movies. I think the only one that feels just a little bit better than this one is Existenz, which is kind of a weird video game kind of movie where you don't know what is to be reality and what is to be the game. So I think that is honestly my favorite Jude Law film just because of how weird it is. Um, but this one is kind of really up there just because it's like an interesting concept. So let's just go into that double five. Let's just go into otherwise just say that it is spoiler time, spoiler time. It's about the time I'm going to spoil this movie. So, very beginning of this film, we of course have Jude Law that is typing away on this typewriter, and we have him talking about Schrodinger's cat, that experiment. And a lot of people who had probably seen Big Bang Theory would know or have heard that experiment from that show, where Jude Law is to go on here and is to mention about a cat that is to be put into a box. Weirdly, also we have another weird, goofy machine that ends up getting put into this box also, that at some point is to randomly spray this poisonous gas to possibly kill this cat. But the guy who is to be experimenting on this doesn't know exactly when the gas is going to be sprayed to kill this cat. So Remy is to make this idea that, because it's the obvious thing, of we won't know that this cat is to be alive or dead, and so technically the cat can be both simultaneously. And that, of course, is to drive Remy crazy to just think that there is to have been an experiment out there where they are going on and not confirming whether they can't confirm whether or not this cat is to be dead. And so they go on and they are to say that the cat is both alive and dead. So we go on and we have Remy, who is to collect from one of his clients. And so we have a guy here who, of course, is to be skipping out on payments. And so all of a sudden we have this guy going to this seemingly expensive hotel room with his hooker of choice, I guess. And so Remy is to go on and to kind of tranquilize Dart, his patient, because he'll be a patient of his soon. And all of a sudden, we have this hooker. I'm assuming is hooker. going on and kind of smacking up Remy. And so Remy's like, there's no need for violence. And so she ends up like continuing to try and hurt Remy so that he is to go on and shoot her also with his tranquilizer dart gun. So Remy, of course, is to ask his patient, like, well, would you like for me to call an ambulance to kind of usher you to a hospital? No? I take that as a no. So, because he isn't answering. So, we have Remy who goes and collects this organ and is to wash it off into the sink and put it into a collection thing to get collected. So we end up finding out that Remy, of course, is to go in this line of dialogue while he's making his way uh, to bring this. Uh, like when you have a organ like a pacemaker, that's basically what they're collecting here. Basically, a lot of certain advancements on people's body that, of course, is to be of metallic based. Basically, saying like anything that is to be uh, a robotic pancreas or a robotic liver or a lung or any number of organs of some kind, or maybe even certain things that are to help you walk or hear or see. Because we have one guy in this movie who I think his name is Ray, who is to go on and just collect hearts or not hearts, ears. Um, and so we have him going on and on and on, seeing that all he's collecting is ears. And because it seems like he's on probation, because he went on and uh, kind of hurt somebody on a subway, and so he's now on probation. So we go on and we have Remy, who is to go and mention about the number of things that a bank would normally collect if you're behind on payments. Going on and mentioning stuff like a house uh, and a car and stuff like that. So Remy used to say also, it's like, well, if you are behind on paying your organ, then like eventually you're going to come and eventually see me at some point. So we go on and we have Remy going and handing in his organ to eventually go home to his wife, who is Carol, and his son, who I believe is Peter, I believe. Um, so we go on and we have, of course, Remy, who is going home to his wife that doesn't really accept what he's doing as a job, but it is what it is. So Remy is to go home to his son, who is to have supposedly gone to school, and his son is to have made a club instead of a Roman weapon because he does not want to really study the Romans. And Remy is to kind of convince his son that the Romans are actually really interesting because they are to go on and do events like Scorched Earth, or eventually they had gone and done like a number of like things like the gladiator things where they ended up sicking lions on people and so on and so forth, and like they are pretty interesting. So we go on after Remy is going and talking to his son after he's going to sleep. We have Remy going and listening to a musician called T-Bone because Remy's favorite artist is to be T-Bone. So we have Remy like trying to want to get some one-on-one time with his wife, and really just trying to butter her up for them to get some one-on-one kind of intimacy, so on and so forth. So eventually it seems that Carol is to still want Remy to go on and transition into sales, to where it seems that more and more Remy is realizing if he doesn't go on and talk to his superior, who is frank about this, eventually Carol will leave him. So we go on and have Remy, of course, the very next day, who is kind of getting ready for his day, having Carol tell Remy to drop Peter off at school, so he goes and does so. So after that, we have Remy going to his work, where he is to, of course, go and talk to us about his normal clients and how at some point they would cry or at some point they would have a laugh. Uh, but eventually they would all go down the same way by his hand, basically. And he would be able to go and collect all of them fairly easily. So we have Remy going on and making his way through uh, the uh, the kind of front door of his work, where of course we have Frank, who is telling Remy like, "Hey, never go into the front door of this place, because if anything, a lot of people who are thinking about buying an organ may think twice when they look at your face and look at you and your bloody mess." So we all of a sudden have Jake come up from behind and eventually shock Remy here, because we have both Remy and Jake who are to have this long stretch of history where I guess Jake and Remy at the fourth grade were to be enemies of one another and would beat the crap out of one another. And but so since then they had become the best of friends, going and being in the military together, and went on to eventually both become Repo Men together, because these guys were to go on to try to be um, helping out the medical industry by going on doing this company, or helping out this company. So we push on here, and so we also had this one kind of interesting thing where I guess both Remy and Jake were going on and doing this kind of duo uh, client thing together. And we just kind of see them kind of slathered in blood, and they kind of make it out of this house and like, man, like, all right, let's go, let's get out of here. So and that was like a flashback, of course, to their history together. So we push on, and we have both current times where we have both Remy and Jake who are kind of beating up one another and shocking one another. And Frank is like, God, I work with children. Like, God, you guys. So eventually we have it to where after their long day at work, we have, of course, both Remy and Jake who are sharing a beer, and so we eventually have Jake who's talking to Remy about there at some point could possibly be, if somebody is to have brain damage, that a person can go and continue to live on to have this kind of dream until they are to eventually pass away, and instead of just having them just go on and be this of course vegetables like state or something like that. So it's kind of like a nice way to go, I guess, to just consistently be living in this dream world of a thing of a sort or whatever. So we go on and we have event. We go on and have Remy, who is to see this girl named Beth, who is going on and singing here. And so Jake, of course, is seeing like, you're looking at that girl again, like, because we have it where Remy is so like tempted to be with this singer, but he, of course, is to be obligated uh, to his wife and whichever. We have at one point where Remy and Jake are going through and kind of randomly scanning certain people to see if they have any organs. And we have at one point that Remy is to notice that there is a guy that is going to have a pancreas that's up in a couple of days. Because we have Frank going on as Remy is making it into the front of the building, going and bumping into this lung. We have Frank going on and telling some possibly new uh, person who's going to start his payments for his organ. We go on and have Frank explain here that uh, times are tough, and that they're gonna figure out some kind of payment for this guy, and that if he is to start missing payments, they're gonna give him a 90-day kind of window of time, and if he still doesn't get his payment done within that 90-day gap, they're going to go and forcibly collect his organ, because at that point it's like, hey, like, we've given you more than enough breathing room uh to just say like, hey, like, now we're after this, now we're going to collect it. So now we have it to where both Remy and Jake, we of course now have a birthday party planned for uh, I think it's Remy's son here. And so we have this kind of party. We of course are to have Jake mentioning to Remy, "Hey, I'm gonna need to borrow your apron," and Remy's like, "Well, why?" Jake is to say, "Well, coincidentally, there is to be another guy that is kind of behind on his payments, and this cab is to be driving its way over here, and I know the cab driver, so I'm gonna go through and collect this guy's kidney." And so Remy's like, okay, but make it fast. And because Jake is to go on and say, it's like, well, hey, like, this is to be me splitting the payment with you, uh, even though I'm going to do all the hard work. And so Remy's like, okay. So Jake goes on and is to toss on this apron and is have this kitchen knife. So we have Jake go and slice this guy open, take his kidney out. All of a sudden, to have Carol, who goes out and spots what's going on here, because Remy is telling Carol that Jake is going on to get more meat, and there's something about this that just doesn't quite set right with her. So Carol goes on and is to spot this kidney being taken out of this man, and now Carol is like, okay, this is freaking done. I'm sick of this. And so we have their son going and kind of, I guess, doing a camera of some sort with his phone. So Carol and her son are to now just get into their car and leave. So we now have it where I guess this is just really just the last straw. And because Remy was supposed to choose between his job or his family, because Remy is to mention to Jake that Carol is to really want him to be a salesman instead of a repo man, uh, because he could get a set schedule, a 9 to 5 kind of hours, where this schedule can just be kind of all over the place. And to where you're spending a lot more time collecting organs than you are because you're having to go and find and track down these people. So, like, that's not really a 9 to 5 window job. So, we have it where finally Remy is trying to win over Carol by really going and saying, like, okay, I think it's about this time that I want to go and talk to my boss. But before that, when Carol is to go back to the house and change the locks and then dump a suit or a thing, a briefcase in of Remy's out to Remy and kind of tell him it's like, well, hey, like, you chose your job over us, so we go on and we have Remy and Jake who are going and coincidentally just kind of finding a nest that is to be on this boat. So we go on and have both Remy and Jake who are kind of counting the number of guys that they are going to take down. And so we go on and we have a number that both of them are trying to get to quickly. So we have them all kind of tranquilize a bunch of people and go and have, like, Jake is kind of really working on some guy for about 10 some odd minutes, and Remy just comes in and takes him down with some pipe, and Jake's like, what? Like, dude, like, I've been working on this guy, and you can't just come in here and just take mine. No. And so we have these guys go and take all of these organs and repo all of them. So now after these, like, I think it was like 30 some odd organs and stuff like that. So these guys are to turn this into Frank, and now Remy is to sit down with Frank and say, like, okay, like, I think I want to be a salesman, and like, I just don't think that I want to do this anymore, or this kind of job anymore, because Frank is to offer them a new position that is to be going on and just kind of finding these nests on their own, and they won't have to go through these kind of pink slip kind of things anymore to have to forcibly go and collect all these guys, because it seems like these guys are showing real initiative, and so they're going to get rewarded by that, and it feels like they deserve it because they're doing a better job than possibly anybody else is. Not quite sure about that. But Remy is to switch up and just say, well, like, I think I want to just go into sales, just get that 9 to 5. And Jake kind of changes it up, like, wait a minute. Like, maybe Remy's really not sure about that. Maybe we'll just go back to just collecting our pink slips, and we'll, like, not want to do that other job. Like, I think we'll just kind of pull back a little bit and just kind of be happy where we are. So all of the sudden, right after this point here, because we really have it where Remy is kind of affecting their job. We have Remy who goes on and is to get T-Bone, uh, this T-Bone mission that he's to go on and do. And so we have Remy who's to go to T-Bone's house that I guess is getting repossessed by the bank. And so I guess this artist is in some kind of slump. And Remy is to mention to T-Bone, it's like, well, this is kind of interesting because I'm actually a big fan of yours. to go and have to collect this guy's heart of all things. So we go and we have this guy who's starting to kind of put like things in his mouth, his teeth and whatever. I guess it's drugs of sorts. So we have, of course, Remy asking T-Bone. It's like, well, hey, like, would you want me to go and have an ambulance stand by to kind of collect you? And T-Bone's like, well, what's the point? Like, if you like, the hospital is going to give me a new heart because I can't pay for it anyways. And Remy's like, well, yeah, but it's always just a prerequisite question that I have to ask everybody. So we have T-Bone who's working on this track, and so T-Bone hands this thing over to Remy, and is to say like, hey, bring this to some guy, tell him it's mine, so on and so forth. So Remy is to go on and defib T-Bone, and once Remy is to defibrillate T-Bone here, all of a sudden we have it where Remy is to get knocked out here. Remy is to mention that there has been 3 times that he had been knocked out. The first time was when he was in military training, where he was wearing this like helmet, and I guess he in the military was going and doing like tank stuff with Jake. So I guess the second time was when Remy had gone on to this, I'm assuming like either brothel or strip club or something like that. And all of a sudden we had Remy and Jake who ended up getting a fight in this place to all of a sudden have Remy get knocked out there. And then this would actually be the third time. So Remy is to wake up in the hospital almost like Iron Man like to find out that there are some tubes being put into his body, keeping him alive. Realizing that somebody had gone on and tampered with the defibrillator and caused some malfunction to force Remy to now have problems with his heart, and now having to force him to need to get uh, a heart transplant, which is basically going to be, of course, this company's like pacemaker kind of thing. So Remy is to kind of just go on and rip these tubes out and just try to think that he can just keep on living and walking and whatever, and he just falls over. And Frank is just like, you know what, like this is just like silly at this point, like you're just delaying the inevitable. But Remy honestly just feels here like he's being betrayed by somebody, either Frank or Jake, to just kind of keep Remy kind of doing whatever they want so he can make payments. And so he just kind of feels like he's being used here to benefit this company, and for him to have to forcefully come up with like payments and so on. So we have Remy getting this pacemaker, and so now all of a sudden Remy again, like I said before, is to have a change of heart, and literally and figuratively, because now Remy, every time he is to see any person that is to be the guy he's going to collect, or girl that he's going to collect some kind of organ from, he's realizing that any number of these people are to have a family, are to have just like people that they depend on. Because Remy is to realize it from himself that he also has people that depend on him. So we have Remy who is to do these things, and is to lie to Jake that he had gone on and taken organs from people when actually he didn't. So we consistently have Remy here who's lying and not doing any of these things that he's supposed to do to get his commission, to make his payments on his heart. And so now Remy is going on and trying to come up with some other means to pay for his heart by going and doing like horse races or figure out some other kind of way for him to win money, but it just seems to not be working here. So, because Remy just no longer wants to do this job anymore. He doesn't want to go and collect organs anymore, and he also doesn't want to go and be a salesman either, because he goes on and he tries to sell some organ to somebody in kind of a lazy-ish way, but then he turns around and tells the people the truth that if you don't go and make payments he or someone like him is going to go after and stalk and track down them and rip out whatever organ it is and kill them, forcing this person to be like, I'm not going to sign for that. I'd much rather just die in a much more peaceful way, probably. So we just have it where Remy here is effed either way. So we have seemingly days going up onto Remy's 90-day thing, and Remy is just okay with it. Just like, well, I guess that's gonna happen. So we have Jake, who's like, really, man? Like, are you serious? Like, why can't you get any of these jobs done? Like, what's wrong with you? So Remy is to be forced to go on and live with Jake, and Remy is to get his final notice for him to get his payments done. So that's when Jake has realized that Remy's having this problem. So Jake has now forced Remy to go on to this place called Paradise to now force him to go and slice somebody open. And Jake's gonna stay there all night if that's what it takes for him to watch Remy do this, so that way Remy can get this commission to start paying for his heart. So we still have Remy go on and still not do what he is supposed to do. Kind of when his guys are to wake up, Remy just kind of lets them go like a fish after you've caught it. So Remy is just to continue to walk through this paradise place. All of a sudden, hearing some girls singing, and Remy is to ask this girl, "How exactly do you know this song?" Realizing that Remy is actually talking to Beth here, the singer from once before. And it seems like she is not as coherent as she once was, because I guess she is filling herself with drugs of sorts. So we have Beth and Remy who are to really just go on to be on the run here, as Beth is to take, or Remy is to take Beth to this spot, and because convincingly we have it to where Remy is kind of asking, like, well, Jake, who do you think is going to get this collection thing? Like, are you going to do it? And Remy and Jake is like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be the one to take it. Maybe anybody's going to be the one to take it. So we of course have Frank, who's like, well, like this, like Remy's gonna have to get claimed. So Frank is to give the thing to Jake to say like, hey, he's getting claimed, and Jake's like, I don't want to claim him. So we forcibly have Frank go on and give Ray, the guy who used to do ears, is to now go on and do Remy here. So uh, so we find out that Beth is to have a number of fake things being put in her. Uh, Ears, eyes, uh, knee, uh, a number of just organs and whatever. So, but I guess her lips are actually all hers, is what she mentions. So we have Remy and we have Beth just kind of passionately making love, realizing how, like, yeah, so this girl isn't all that real. But that doesn't matter because what we have together is real. So we go on, and so we have Beth who is to hear something in the background. And so Remy's like, well, I can't hear that. So Beth is to go on and use her, like, super hearing and attach her super hearing to Remy using headphones so he can hear what's going on. So Remy's realizing that Ray is on his way to go and collect here. So when he makes it to Remy is going and typing away at his typewriter because he's going and making some, like, he's basically going on to do his story about what had kind of happened here. So we have Remy going and talking to Ray, and Remy, of course, is kind of like, I'm kind of disappointed that they end up sending the ear guy to come and collect me. And so Ray is to start to walk here, and he ends up walking into this hole into of course this floor. All of a sudden, we have Beth who is starting to, like, walk from where she was to all of a sudden have her fall, and she ends up injuring her knee. Eventually, at some point, she has to go and reopen up her knee and adjust it, but it seems like she's hobbling for a good while. So we have it where Remy is to now have to kind of fight off Ray here because Beth is down there. And so Remy is to go on and drop his typewriter to, of course, crush Ray's head. So Remy and Beth are running off, and so Beth's knee is bleeding, so she adjusts it, but she, like, kind of puts this, like, kind of like barely bandage whatever thing, and so their next plan is to figure out, like, okay, where can we get out of here? Where can we escape? And so Remy's master plan is like, well, let's go to the airport. And Beth's like, airport? Like, there's no way we're gonna be able to make it through the airport. Like, somebody's gonna find out that we're gonna be claimed people. And so Remy's like, no, we won't, because we'll have these blockers that won't tell them uh, that we're claimed people. So we have Remy and Beth who go to this airport to uh, seem to have everything going well. They're getting checked and by these kind of uh, these things, and they're like, okay, go ahead, okay, go ahead. But all of a sudden, the one thing that is to be the telltale sign here is Beth is kind of bleeding on the ground. So, like, okay, like, wherever you're bleeding from, we need to go and kind of check on this to make sure that you're okay to fly. So Remy now ditches ditches the kind of the blockers. So now we go on and we have this woman that is going on and checking this knee. And so forcibly now Beth and Remy are to go and again be on the run here and try to scramble out of this airport because they realize how much of a mistake that was. And so now Remy is asking Beth, it's like, well, like since that backfired, where do you think that we're gonna have to head to next? So Beth is to know a guy named Asbury, or I think his name is Asbury. I know his real name is John Leguizamo. Asbury. Yeah, that's what I'm assuming his name is. So we, of course, go on here and we have kind of Beth having to go under here as this kind of 5 year old is working on this girl's knee because we have the one girl who's to just be the girl that comes in and is to just kind of like give her the kind of the knockout gas, and the 5 year old is to be the surgeon to go and operate on this girl's knee. And Remy's like, that girl's like 5, and the other woman is saying it's like, well, yeah, she's been operating since she was 4. So I'm like, oh my god. So we have Remy, who is to have Beth kind of being in the good. I guess they probably ended up having to replace this girl's knee. Not quite sure, but everything seems to be hunky dory. So we find out that the real difference between Asbury, who's John Leguizamo, and Remy's character, who's Jude Law, is that evidently when his patients, Asbury's patients, are to die, he goes back and collects all the organs and then resells them. So basically, I guess that's some kind of insurance kind of thing to just say, like, well, hey, uh, like I'll let you put all this stuff into me, and immediately when I die, you can take all of it, and like that'll be my payment because we have Beth, who's mentioned that she is to make a lot of black market deals and stuff of that nature. So, but like Jude Law's character Remy would go and take these organs from people, whether they're already alive or dead or whatever. You would have thought like it would be kind of interesting, like what happens when a patient dies? Like, do they go and recollect that anyways? Like, is it something where it's like, well, since this person's dead, uh, like even though they've made all the payments, whatever. It also seems like those like prices for any of these organs are so absurdly high. You kind of wonder if someone would have just easily paid it off because there may be some rich millionaire or whatever and been able to pay it all off. And so that would be kind of like the interesting part of the story. Just like, well, like this person has all had all kinds of advances being put into them because really, when really looking at it, they can afford all of it. So maybe they'll be like a robot. They'll be Wolverine basically at that point to just have like all kinds of advancements being put into their body for whatever reason. So we have, of course, Jake who shows up at Asbury's place to go on and knock, of course, Remy out here. Here's the thing. So we have 2 different stories that are to be playing out here, and you can go on and take this segment in 2 different approaches. You could go on and watch the movie the way it's done, or you can go on and pause this at a certain point and then kind of like skip to the further end part like, oh, like that could be a different kind of alternative ending, whatever this movie, and you have never like seen all the other kind of stuff that is to lead to what Remy would want to be his happy ending. But we'll get to that. We'll get to it. We'll get to the real, I guess, dream happy ending, whichever. So Remy is to instead go on and kind of eventually have himself be knocked out. But then once he wakes up, him and Beth are to scramble out of here, and they go on and find Asbury dead. And so Jake has to come back in and say, like, well, yeah, he's going to do that for a while because we had this goofy voice box thing that Asbury's Dimension is to be the new thing at parties that is going to be this, like, interesting thing. So we go on and we now have uh, Remy and Beth scrambling to get out of here. And so their latest idea, once they are at the subway station, is now they have to go on and plan to uh, get into these headquarters to kind of reset all of these claims, because Remy was to go on and try to figure out the barcodes for Beth and try to unclaim her stuff by just figuring out the barcodes. And so Remy has now effed up the system, and so there's only a very certain limited way for them to now have to kind of get to these organs, which is to have the organ basically just be there and to be scanned. We'll find out later on. So Remy is to go and have his wife and his son on this subway. And so Carol is mentioning to Remy that people are calling her 3 times a day to see uh, where Remy is. I'm like, well, yeah, that goes into like the spam kind of thing of like, well, yeah, you're gonna get consistently called by all these people out of the woodwork trying to ask like where Remy really is, because that's all that matters to them is just like dogging them to just gonna get the payments done or whatever. So we have Remy going and talking to his son, and so after that they go on and we have Remy and Beth who are to go and find Frank uh, and kind of taser him, and they go on and they try to uh, oh my god, because they go and they do this twice where eventually Remy is to go and find Frank and taser him again, and he's like, really, again? Because he wants information out of him. So I think the first time might have been when uh, Remy was to go on and try to. Oh, I think the first time was Remy going through and uh, trying to figure out how to claim all of Beth's stuff, so nobody's going after Beth anymore. But it seemed like that didn't work. So this time around, we have Remy coming in as some lung costumed character, and is going through these headquarters. And so now Remy is to go and talk to Frank after he tasers him again and tortures him, and he's saying like, well, hey, like everything, like just give me your heart, and then all of this will be fine. And Remy's like, no, like you're not going to take my heart from me. He's like, you don't get it. Like the only way that you're not going to be claimed is to, yeah, give me your organ and I'll go and I'll put it away. Because you basically effed that up before with the whole barcode situation. So now everything has to be scanned by hand. So we, of course, go on and we have Frank, who is to, of course, get uh, tranquilized by Frank. We have Jake, who is to bump into the lung, and Jake is to tell him, it's like, hey, if you ever want to become a Repo Man, it's like kind of learn where you're walking kind of thing. So we go on, and Remy and Beth are to scramble on to make it to this place, uh, and they have to go and kill a number of guys to make it to this one vault that Remy and Beth are thinking it's like, well, maybe there's going to be some keyboard there, there's going to be some computer there, and we can kind of just take down manually our claims so that way people will stop coming after us. But instead, when they end up going there after stabbing through numerous people and having to shoot and tranquilize a number of people, so on and so forth. So Remy and Beth make it to this vault, and Jake and Frank are not far behind. And so now Remy's to realize that the only way that their stuff can be fine is if they're scanned out. So Remy goes through and is to like cut open his chest to have now Beth going and scanning his heart, which finally gets him to be having his heart resolved here. And so now Remy has to go through and cut through Beth to go on and scan all throughout her body. And while he's doing that, he's starting to lose Beth because like there's so much blood that she is gushing out. Plus already she has lost a lot of blood from that whole knee situation. So Remy is to go through because this girl has numerous things that she has to scan, like her eyes, her ears, and her voice box, all the way down to any number of things to still scan her knee, slicing through parts of her thigh and leg and whatever. And there's a organ in her chest. So by that time, Jake is to make it there, and we have Beth who just kind of barely hanging on here. So we finally have it where Remy does get to the organ and he kind of like seals Beth in, and so we really just have it where Remy is telling Jake, it's like, hey, like, come on, like, let's go and let's have his heart being collected because that's all that matters. So Jake goes on and is to stab Remy in the face, like in the neck, and drops him, and decides to help, of course, Remy and Beth here by going on and putting explosives in this little tray to collect all of these organs, and closes this up and explodes the whole thing, kind of, I guess, destroying this whole thing here. So after that, it seems that Remy was to tell his son that when they were on the train, that he's to go to this certain location, and he gives them this book that he had been doing. So we find both Remy and Beth, who are to be on this tropical island with Jake, because I guess after this thing is all done, they had gone on to decide to just go and, I guess, live the rest of their life on some tropical island. And it seems that Remy's son had gone on to publish this book that, of course, Remy had put together. And Jake, of course, asking Remy, it's like, well, am I in this book? And he's like, I don't know. So, because there wasn't a definitive answer there. So, and we have like the picture of Jude Law in the back of it to just kind of say, like, yeah, I guess this is a real book. So, all of a sudden, we have Jake who, like, disappear, and Remy's a little confused by that. So, we find out that Jake is actually back at that one point where Remy had gotten knocked out, and now Remy is to be in this kind of state where he is going on and dreaming, and Beth is to kind of be kind of taken out, and they're possibly just going to go and harvest all of her organs and take all of them out. And so we're still at that spot, that place of Asbury, and like all of this is to just kind of wrap up with Remy going on and having this peaceful dream for the rest of his life, and that's just gonna finish up the movie, supposedly, having this alternative story and whatever that isn't to be this all happy ending, and we just have of course Frank going on and pitching this whole new setup for people by the end of this film, just kind of setting up uh, the policy and procedure for anyone who is to be signing, of course, for another organ, and like that's just kind of how the movie just finishes up. With business as usual, or basically that the bad guy wins at the end, technically. So, with that said, I think that finishes up my review. I think I'm going to get out of here. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to maybe get one more review out. I'm kind of getting a little bit of right at this point now. Because normally what I try to do is I try to do like 2 videos, and then I usually kind of rest, and then I come back for a third one. So we'll kind of see if I can just crank out one more video for a day, or I'm gonna just have to call it a day and just come back later. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.